Oh, right, here we are for maintenance week 148. What a week. What a week. Right, so where shall I start? Right, I'm going to start with, one sec. I'm going to start with a small simple thing. So I came in, I think this is Monday. I came in, I think, last Wednesday. I come in down the bottom of my fish room where my sump and a lot of my dosing heads and that are. And I noticed my Kamara, which you can see there, which runs my calcium reactor. So that's the FX Wi-Fi version. It was making a weird kind of sucking noise. So I came up and checked that the effluent was running out of the calcium reactor, and it wasn't. So I thought, right, I've got a blockage in there, which is why it's making that noise. So I checked the line from the sump to the reactor, and it did have some, that kind of brown sediment that you get in the bottom of your sump. So some of that got sucked into that line, cleared that out, put it back on, still didn't work. So I then cleared the line from the output of the Kamara pump all the way up to the calcium reactor. It's got, I think there's 2 filters. So they are like one-way valves. So they stop the water back cycling. And then there's also a filter at the top, which is actually a petrol filter for a car, which comes with the calcium reactor. So I gave that a clean as well, put all that back together, still didn't work. So I'm only left with that little bit of peristaltic tube in the pump itself. So, you think, someone asked you, you would have 100% gone, yeah, I've got one. And I was absolutely convinced I had a spare. I searched literally everywhere. And I didn't have one. So I was like, right. So I took that one out. I flushed it through with, I bought 2 boxes of, I think there's 50 syringes in the box. I've got loads of syringes, and I just use them to pump through tubing and various things. So I managed to clean it out. So it did have quite a bit of crud in it, actually. So I massaged the tube, flushed it all through, got it back, put the little connectors back on the ends, and it's been running fine since. But I do need to get a new, peristaltic tube for that Kamara pump. So I need to. It's on my list of things to do. So that was an hour and a half probably, just fanning around trying to get that to work. So that's been running fine. So the other thing which happened was I've run 3 heaters on this tank. I've run a 1,000 watt, a 600 watt, and a 500 watt. They're all titanium heaters. They all have separate temperature controllers. So 2 of them run off of Inkbird, the ITC 306A Wi-Fi versions. So that is a dual heating Wi-Fi controlled controller. I bought dual heating because on my old tank in my office, I used to have a Red T750. I used to plug 2 heaters into one controller. That's another story. I could only ever get 1 heater to come on at a time, but anyway. So on this tank, I bought another one. So each one runs 1 heater. So the main one, the 1,000 watt heater, I couldn't connect to the controller. So it'd come offline. Sometimes they go offline anyway. They just lose Wi-Fi connection. Like if the router goes down or something, and they don't reconnect very well. Because they're stuck down under the tank, the Wi-Fi down there is pretty horrendous anyway. So I just thought I'll just reconnect it. So you go to the app on the phone and so I tried several times and it wouldn't reconnect. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to pull it out and get it right next to the router so I can pick up the signal. And then I pulled it out, and obviously I unplugged the heater, and then I noticed that the socket that the heater was plugged into was melted. So the actual plastic around the plug socket itself had deformed, and it looked kind of black and charred inside. So I was like, not good. Obviously, why it's not working. So it's gone in the bin. So that I probably had that for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, because I said it came off my previous tank, which is in the house. So now I'm thinking, most of the time my heaters don't come on in this tank, so it's not like I'm putting a lot of work through that temperature controller. They probably come on for 2 months of the year. It's only because we've had a particularly cold week last week, where it's dropped to below zero, that the heaters have come on at night. So I don't know. They don't fill your confidence, do they? When you see things like that, a melted plug socket in something that's not really got a big demand on it, it makes me question on the build quality, really. So now I'm in a quandary of whether to just buy another one or whether to go for something different. So I've got one Inkbird left, and the third heater, like the backup heater, is plugged into my Apex. That's a 500 watt heater, and they just go down incrementally in temperature, basically. So the first one comes on, let's say when it drops to 25, that will come on. The one below it will come on if it drops to 24.8, and the one below that will come on if it drops to 24.6, for example. I think it's something like that anyway. So I'm just thinking what I should get. So I might try the D&D dual controller, which has heating and cooling, and that way I can put a fan on the other outlet, and then in the summer I can put that over the sump, so it just comes automatically. If the temperature gets too warm, I might try that. I've never had a D&D temperature controller. They're not, they're not expensive. They're like 45 quid or something. So that's that. So the Kamoa needed cleaning. The Inkbird has nearly burnt my fish room down. That's the exaggeration, but that's the way I think. Is just think, it could have been bad. And so what was the other thing? Oh yes, and then the other thing was, I don't remember, last week I said I had a leak down here, and I did a video on cleaning my Abyss A200 pump out, which was fine. First time I've touched that pump since I've turned it on in 3 years. I got two. I've cleaned the other one out because that had a snail in it probably about a year ago, but this one, never touched it. 3 years. Just, I love those pumps. They just work. They're workhorses. So I cleaned that out and it all went fine. Put it back. Everything's good. And then I thought, while I've got some time, I'm going to look at this leak over here. So I thought it was the Vectorel one, which circulates the water in this mixing bin here. So the way I mix my salt is, I've got two IBCs outside, so 2,000 litres of water outside. I mix it up cold, whatever the ambient temperature is out there, that's why I mix it out. And then I pump it up here. This is 350 litres, and it sits here for a week, comes up the temperature, which is 25. And then I check it with my trusted salinity checker, which is non-digital. So I use these because there's nothing to go wrong with them. So they measure at 25 degrees, which is what my water is at. I just drop it in there, and it tells me that it's at 35 parts per thousand, hopefully. Well, it does SG, doesn't it? But anyway, specific gravity, it measures not parts per thousand, but anyway. So that's what I use. So I was convinced the pump was leaking. It's very hard to tell when you've got water just kind of around in an area where the actual source is. And the first thing I do when I have water where it shouldn't be, basically, is I taste it, because I want to know whether it's fresh water or salt water. And this was, I can't describe this, brackish, because it wasn't full strength salt water, but it was definitely salty. So I was like, where's it coming from now? I don't understand. So I took the L1 pump apart because I thought it had a leaky seal in it, because obviously it's external. And as I took it apart, I took the front housing off, and it was absolutely smothered in rust. So if you look at these pictures, you can just see the state of the body of the skimmer. And then when I took the ceramic shaft out, it was the body had a crack in it on the inside, and it was just leaching rust from the magnet, I guess, in the body of the motor. So I thought, so obviously I put my new fresh water up into this, and I circulate for a week because I do weekly water changes. So like today's Monday, water change day, I will take the 300 litres, stick it in the display, and then I'll pump up the fresh 300 litres, and it sits there for a week circulating, coming up to temperature. But obviously, while it's sitting there, I've got a pump that's leaching, I don't know what, into the water. So where I'm thinking I'm putting nice, fresh, clean salt water into my display tank, I'm putting something in. I'm not sure what it is, but if it's rust, it's not good, is it really? So fortunately, I had a spare L1, so I swapped it out, put it back in. The other fortunate thing is that was last Monday morning. I'd also taken a water sample and sent it off for an ICP test. So I knew that sample would contain whatever was in that water, because I don't know how long that pump's been like that. So the ICP would show up if there's any heavy metals or anything. So I drained this tank, so I dumped 350 litres of fresh salt water straight down the drain, and then refilled it with just normal tap water. I dumped in a kilo of citric acid. I gave it a very good clean for 24 hours, pumped all that tap water out, refilled it with RO water, circulated that, got rid of that, and then filled it up with fresh salt water. So it's now, the drum's nice, and it don't get really dirty anyway. I use Tropic Man salt mix is really clean, but it does get, some stuff in there. But now it's all sparkly clean. And obviously I've got it's not new, but I checked the spare L1 pump, and it all looked clean and good. So I will not be leaving it 3 years before I check it again, though. And I can't decide whether I should just leave that pump on there, or maybe I should get something better. I don't know. I'll come round to that. So anyway, so I did all that. So I put the new pump in, put it all in, cleaned all the barrel out, put the new salt water in, and then I come in the next morning, and there's still water on the floor. So I was like, wow, I've not fixed the original problem. I did find a problem, but that wasn't the original one. I guess it's kind of fortuitous that I did look at that pump, because I had a water leak somewhere, because I wouldn't have looked at it otherwise, because I don't know, in your head you just go, it's not really doing anything. It's on a very low setting. It's clean, fresh water. There's nothing in there. There's no vermitids to get in the pump, and there's no algae. There's nothing in there. It's just clean, fresh water. So it makes you a little bit complacent that the pump's just fine. So anyway, that got caught, but it didn't solve the leak. So I then thought maybe the bulkhead on the bottom of this tank, because the bulkhead comes in out in the bottom corner, and I've broken it before, because I've dropped something and snapped it off, clean off. I've had to refit it. So I do catch it just because it sticks out in the corner. But when you wipe it around with kitchen roll, and you're seeing if there's any dampness on there. And I took I got a ball valve either side of the pump. I took those apart, checked the O-rings, put them all back together again to make sure they weren't weeping out onto the floor. So I did all that. Came back the next day, still water on the floor, still tastes slightly salty, but not really salty. So I took all of the gubbins out from under the sink, laid them back with a torch, and just laid there waiting to see a drip, basically. So I know I've got a drip on the way to the sink, but that's a very slow drip. And obviously at night I'm not using the sink, so that's not where that leak's coming from. And then eventually I found it was coming from the tap connector. Just a slow, constant drip, but it was dripping onto the L1 pump, and then obviously the water just kind of exploding off of it, which is why I was finding it difficult to get the origin. It's a very simple fix, just a spanner basically nipped it up a bit tighter, job done. So that area now is all done. So the other good news is that I had the results back from the ICP, and I've got nothing showing untowards in the water. And so I'm hoping that I caught it early enough, or just the volume of water is big enough that whatever was leaching in has not caused a problem in the tank. I mean, the only problem I had in this tank, which made me send the ICP off anyway, I like to check, but was that I've got a grafted Monty, which was growing really well, starting to scroll, and all of a sudden it started just dying from one end, and it was receding, not quick, but you just look at it and go, why is that doing that? Out of all the corals, everything else is fine. So initially I thought it was being stung because it was reasonably close to a gonny, but gonnies aren't massively stingy, really, are they? Anyway, so I chopped off the dead part, and it's fine now. But I don't know whether there was something in there. It could be completely unrelated, but that's just what your brain does, doesn't it? It goes, something bad in my water. That's got to be why that's that one coral out of the, I don't know how many corals I've got in there, 100 plus corals. That's why that's playing up. But anyway, the ICP come back clear, so that's good. And I've had nothing else at the moment showing any signs of it being unhappy. So that was that, really. So that's the Inkbird saga, the Kamoa saga, the tap on the sink, and the rusty Vectra L1 pump. So the only other thing really that played me up this week, which is the second time in, I think, 3 months, is my Trident. It just gave me 0 readings across the board for all 3 elements. So when I wake up in the morning, one of the things I do is I like to just check where the parameters are at, temp, pH, and the alk, calcium, and mag. And it came back, it did a midnight measure of all 3, and it had 0 values for all of them. So I was like, hopefully that's wrong. I came in, obviously the tank's fine, so I refilled the reagent bottles, even though they didn't need it. They had reagent in there. I went through the process and I primed all the lines, and then I ran a test. I watched the water coming through because I wanted to check the sample line was fine. I checked the waste coming out, so I knew those lines were not blocks. And then it gave me a test A foul. So I did the whole process again, and then it gave me a no water sample error, which I knew was wrong because I watched the water come in and I watched it go out. So I did a complete factory reset. So basically I shut it down, and you go through those sequence, you take the feed line out and it purges all the lines. I took it off the apex, and then I added it back like it was a brand new Trident, really. And I did all that, and it works fine now. So I think that's a software issue. But that's the second time it's done that in about 3 months. So I don't really know what's going on with it. It's just annoying, and I hate being without it, to be honest. I mean, so much so that I'm seriously considering getting a second one so that I can have 2 on the go. I say because I've always run, well, I haven't always run one, but since they came available, I bought it as soon as it came out, and I've run it ever since. So you just get used to having that information, and they're accurate. They maintain good precision, good accuracy. I test it every now with manual kits, but yeah, it's been good. Other than every now and then it has a bit of a hissy fit. So that was that. So basically that is my week this week. I've had the Kamoa pump go, I've had a rusty L1, I've had a burnt out Inkbird controller for the temperature, I fixed a leak, I wasted 350 litres of salt water. Yeah, just I don't want a lot of weeks like them. They're not the great weeks, are they? Yeah, so that's just what comes with having when you have a big tank, you have just more stuff to break, really. And everything scales up. The big tank is, the amount of time I spend with the tank scales up as well. I mean, I told you last week that I think I put probably 50 new corals in this tank in the last week and a half from a tank breakdown. And for the last 4 mornings, every morning I come in to feed the fish, I find corals that have been knocked off. So I'm even really rubbish at sticking corals down. It's probably a combination of I could do better and the fact that fish are getting to a size where if they barrel into a coral, they're going to send it flying. I mean, they smashed my Prosophora to pieces. It looks like someone's dynamited it. That's quite a brittle. I mean, I understand the biology of why it does that, because it's a good way of getting itself to spread, and it does all over the tank. But it's probably not the best coral to have when you've got big tangs. You know, my so old tank's probably a foot long now, and they crash into things. You know, they're a bit clumsy at times. So yeah, so the last 4 mornings in a row, I had to re-glue. I use super glue, and I use that technique where I stick the glue to the rock first, smear it on, and then I stick the glue to the frag, and then I'm sticking super glue to super glue. So when I do it, they look good. You know, I think they're pretty well stuck. But when I came in this morning, and the gonny, which is like about that big, was completely smashed off and just laying on the bottom of the tank. So I had to stick that on this morning. And then I got another rag, which is supposed to be something special. I mean, that just doesn't look very special. But that was just a single, like pinky sized frag, which I try not to stick them dead upright if I can help it. I like to tilt them because they just get more light, obviously. But I found a hole in the rock which it fitted into perfectly, so I just super glued it in, and I thought, yeah, that's good. And then obviously it got smashed into and knocked, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it for a week. And it's only when I went back to the shop and they were telling me, they told me it was some rainbowy something or other. You know, it's supposed to be a really amazing coral when it grows out. So I thought, oh, I should make the effort to find it, really. But I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere, and I couldn't see it. And then just by chance, I looked on a rock and thought, oh, that's it. And it's just laying on a rock there. So I thought, I'll leave it there. It seems happy. It's on its side now. It's actually got some colour on it. So hopefully it will fix to the rock and grow up from that. So I think that's it, really. Yes, I can't really think of anything else which needs talking about. I'm going to make a video on keeping an Achilles tang, because I've had my Achilles, he's in his 3rd year in this tank now. It's one of the reasons I set the tank up, because I love Achilles tangs. I think they're amazing. So I just thought they're still considered a difficult fish to keep long term. So I thought I would just give my opinions on how to keep them, why I've been successful, and how others could possibly be successful. Just talk about why your rockscape's important, how to introduce them, how to feed them, you know, just general requirements really of having a nice, clean, disease-free, happy Achilles tang. And then I'm also going to make a video at some point about the skimmer, but not as exciting really, talking about skimmers. Yes, I think I am. I was just about to say that talking, you know, if you have a big tank, you have more stuff to go wrong. And while I'm sitting there, I'm just looking at my lights, because I was actually going to say the lights have been as good as gold for weeks and weeks now. And I've just noticed that I've got one that's not on. So I've got 19 lights over the tank, and 18 of them are working, and one isn't. And it's bizarre actually, because all of the problems I've had with these lights, I had a ton of trouble with these lights when they were on Mobius. I've now moved them over to the MXM module, and they are massively better. But throughout all of the troubles, they wound me up so much, I considered just getting rid of all of them and just completely changing to another manufacturer's lights. But now I've moved them all over. They seem to work how you want them to work. They just ramp up in the morning and then they ramp down and go off. That's all I wanted really. But I've got two XR30 Gen 4s over this tank down that end, and they have never ever gone wrong. They just come on when you want them to, ramp up, ramp down, and go off. So when all these other ones were coming on and off at random times in the middle of the night, not coming on at all, those two G4s was good as gold. It's weird, isn't it? They've moved the technology on, and you don't always see an improvement in the actual functioning of it. Yeah, so I've got a dead light there now, so I don't know what's caused that. So that'd be next week's video. Hopefully that'll be it, because I could do with an easier week, to be honest. So I think that will do for this video. I can't think of anything else. I don't know how long I've been talking, but I think that's probably about it. So I will see you in the next one.